Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stephenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association. And this month, we are back with a brand new topic, timberland as an investment. But before we get to that, we're going to thank our sponsors this month, PotlatchDeltic, for their continued support of the show. We're going to hear a little bit more from them later on in this episode. But for now, let's welcome my guest this month, Scott Corley, the Senior Real Estate and Acquisitions Manager for PotlatchDeltic. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Seth, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So, Scott, since you are new to the show, we always like to kind of start with people's background and history so our guests can kind of get a feel for what they've done and who they are. So can you kind of just start us off there and tell us who you are and what your history is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from South Alabama and went to school, Auburn, Georgia. Spent time in procurement with Georgia Pacific and land management with Alabama Power Company, and joined PotlatchDeltic. It's been about 10 years ago now as a forester on our Alabama lands. And with the Deltic merger, moved over here 2018 in real estate and have been here kind of managing it for a while, our south properties. And then, as you may know, we merged with Catchmark a couple of years ago and kind of expanded what we had. So now I'm over our Gulf South region, which would be Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and handle all of our real estate sales and acquisitions here in the Gulf South.
Okay. And you're based here in Little Rock,
I'm
right?
here in Little Rock. That's
okay.
right.
Cool. Well, Scott, we're kind of talking today about land as an investment. We've spoken at length in a couple previous episodes about land as recreational land and ag land financing, but we've never really focused on the investment side of things. So I guess let's start with kind of, what are we talking about when we're looking at ag land as an investment?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking at any type of land as an investment, you know, there's all types of opportunities there, right? So specifically for PotlatchDeltic, we own timberland, obviously. And so we have, you know, opportunities there from a timber aspect, from a hunting aspect. You know, we have properties that may have a better use beyond those, maybe for some development potential. So investment means different things for different people. So for a timber company like us, it's a timber investment. It's what's going to feed our meals as well. But you have people who want recreational opportunities. So that's an investment for them. You have developers who want to purchase for some type of development potential. That's their investment. And just maybe somebody wants to build a home place. So it really varies. But when you have that raw land, you know, you've got a lot of opportunity there beyond something that's already developed or already has some general use. So, ag land, forest land, a lot of potential there.
Well, and everybody, especially here in Arkansas or maybe even the South, I don't know if I'm overreaching, everyone kind of wants their own little piece of home, right? They want their own little piece of wherever they're living.
Yeah, no, that's it. And that's what, there's something kind of for everybody, right? I mean, you look across the South, if you want a piece of property that is, you know, a timber property, you're going to have that. If you're looking for something that has recreational opportunities, streams, you name it, if you're looking for, you know, a place for a house, it's there. I mean, it's just, that's what's so great about working in this space because you've got just this raw piece of land to some degree that has all this opportunity, and there's something really for everybody.
And I guess, what are some of the challenges that either you guys have faced or you have seen other people, other investors face when it comes to starting or getting this off the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it goes to the old saying, you know, they're not making any more land, right? So that's always the challenge. There's only so much out there. And when, you know, for us, if we're looking for a timber opportunity, it's got to fall in certain buckets to make it worthwhile for us. And it's not always available, right? So patience has, you know, been something, you know, that's a challenge sometimes, especially when you're wanting to do things. And so having patience, and then it's competitive out there. And that it doesn't really matter if you're talking about the 20-acre piece of property to thousands of acres. I mean, there are people out there constantly looking for properties. And so you're not the only person who that property that shows up that you want, there's probably somebody else that is looking at it as well. So that's that's, some of the biggest challenges.
Well, it's kind of like buying a home, especially nowadays. You find one that seems right, but then there's like 5 other people behind you also really jonesing for that house.
That's exactly right. Especially if it's a really good piece of property. Just to your point, just like a really great house, there's going to be people knocking down the door a lot of times, and so you've got to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to really know what you want, and be prepared to step up when it's available. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to set yourself up pretty well to be able to find those opportunities.
So, and this might be a dumb question, and it may fall back to, it depends on your goals for a property, but what exactly makes a piece of land a good investment? Right.
And like I said, to your point, it's something different for everybody. Mm-hmm. Obviously, timberland, if that's what you're going for, what are your goals there? Do you want a piece of property that has different age classes that you can do something with over time? If it's a recreational property, what are the hunting seasons where it is? What are you, where, how are you wanting to recreate? Are there streams? Are there, a diverse, timber types? And, if you go to development sense, you've got, what are the road frontage? What's it around? Mm-hmm. What are the characteristics of it that are going to draw people there for your purpose? So really it's just like I said, it's different no matter how you look at it. And I always say, every acre of land is different. Mm-hmm. And so that's, something to keep in mind.
Well, and I guess too, we're talking about being ready to jump onto something when it becomes available. Right. But you also do kind of need to stop and smell the roses, for lack of a better term, and kind of make sure that what you're looking at and what you're purchasing does fit those needs of yours. Right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to be educated on what you're trying to do. I too often see people who haven't really spent time to understand what the market is mm-hmm. and what they truly want. And, a piece of property may just become available, but it may not be the right piece of property mm-hmm. for what you're trying to do. And, and that's a challenge because, when people are ready to do something, sometimes it's just like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it. But if you're not taking time to understand what are your true needs here, and does this really meet my needs? And, I think it's easier for people if you think about buying a house, mm-hmm. it's easier to kind of describe what you're looking for in a house and know what you're really trying to get. But with an ag or timberland property, that may be a little bit harder for some people to understand and go through that process. And I think a lot of times we see that where people, they've bought 2 or 3 houses before mm-hmm. and they think it's that easy and they don't really know what they're getting into. So I think you've got to get yourself educated and look around. And there's plenty of ways to do that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got brokers out there here in Arkansas specifically, great brokers that, you can reach out to and say, here's what I'm trying to do mm-hmm. and can help lead you in the right direction.
Well, and that's something that we like to harp on this show a lot, actually, is if you don't know something, there's plenty of people out there that are willing to help you out. All you have to do is pick up a phone and give them a call. So, and I guess this kind of leads me into my next question, Scott, is for someone in your position or someone like you, is that kind of what you guys are there to do with the potential buyer, is to kind of help guide them through this whole process?
That's right. I mean, we list a lot of property. Mm-hmm. PotlatchDeltic does with brokers, but, we have people reach out to us all the time and say, here's what I want. Here's what I'm looking for. Maybe they have a specific property in mind, but, mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time trying to understand their true needs. And I mean, it's easy for us just to sell a piece of property, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we want people to be happy with what they're getting and not look back and feel like that was a bad investment mm-hmm. on their part. So you've got so many ways, right, to get information. To your point, pick up the phone and talk to somebody. I mean, there's plenty of people who are willing to to help out just to make sure that you're getting what you're looking for, or you just understand what you're getting yourself into.
And similar to kind of what we talked about too with creating a management plan for timberland, is it probably helps to know what exactly you're wanting to do. Is it for recreational? Is it for timber? Like having that general goal before you even start this whole process is what needs to happen.
Yeah. You want to sit down and be able to, I say, put it on paper, right? Know exactly what you're looking for. So that way, when you go to a piece of property, you can get overwhelmed a lot of times, especially if it's a significant piece of property. It has a bunch of different features. Getting out there and knowing exactly what you're looking for, and don't just get, like, oh, here's that piece of property that's come up. I just need to buy it because I need a piece of property. Really just know what you need. So yeah, just like you said, like a management plan, it's just like that. You've got to know what you're wanting to get out of the property. So
Scott, if you can kind of walk me through what exactly is the process of getting a piece of land now? Is it, simply say, yep, that's it. That's what I want. You sign some pieces of paper, hand over some money, and you're good to go? Or what's the process for doing this?
I wish it was that easy.
I mean, I'm trying,
there are several steps there. I mean, obviously, if you're going to finance, you need to talk with that financial institution that you're wanting to use early on. Know what you can do there. Talk through that process with them. What's it going to take from that end for you to be able to buy a piece of property? And then if you found this piece of property, you're going to want to talk through with the seller on what terms are. You've got to know what contingencies are. You're going to want to look at a contract, really understand a contract. I see too many people who just sign a contract and don't know what they're signing. They haven't taken the time. And maybe that's getting some help from, an attorney or somebody who's done this before, who's able to say, yeah, those terms don't really fit what you're trying to do. But certainly getting a contract in place is the next step. And then, title work, you're going to want to make sure you're getting a property with clean title, right? And exactly what you're getting is what you're supposed to be getting. And that takes some time. I mean, and if you're a cash buyer, it moves a little quicker. You're not having to worry about the banks, but you may need to get the property surveyed. Surveyors stay pretty busy. And so I would say that at the end of the day, it's not just a super quick process. I'm sure if you just want to forego title, and I wouldn't recommend that, but if you're wanting to do that and you've got cash, you just want to buy a property, somebody's going to be willing to do that. But I would say, once again, patience, get through the process, know what you've got, and you'll be much happier.
I guess I'm showing my experience with my gross oversimplification of this whole process, but that's what we're here. We're here to learn. So, are there any differences, I guess, Scott, between how it kind of works today and maybe what this process was like 5, 10, however many years ago? Has there been a lot of changes with this whole thing? Probably
not too many. Okay. Just process wise, obviously rates change, right? Especially if you're financing, rates change. Markets change, right? I mean, that's the main thing. Maybe there's some new loan options out there that weren't there. But certainly it's become a lot more, in my mind, competitive. We've seen that over just the past 4 or 5 years. It's just a lot more people interested in being out. And I think certainly the pandemic played a part in that, where people wanted their little spot to get away. And so when you've got that, you've got more people in the market maybe than there were, a few years ago. And so that's really the biggest change we've seen. From a process standpoint, probably pretty similar.
Okay. So I guess you guys have seen a pretty good increase just within these last 4-ish years or so.
Yeah. I can just look back and where we were, 6 years ago to where we are today. And there are just more people out there looking at land.
And I guess this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't just Arkansas.
No. This is, I think, across the South at least. And that's what I'm most familiar with. And obviously PotlatchDeltic, we own property across the South. We own property in Idaho. And so we've seen it in all these places. And it's just kind of taken off. And some of that ebbs and flows, right? Yeah. But I'd still say we're seeing more than we did.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, Scott, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from PotlatchDeltic, the sponsor for this month's episode.
PotlatchDeltic, we know Arkansas, our forest, our land, and our people. We are here in Arkansas every day, sustainably managing timberland, producing lumber, developing Chenal properties, neighborhoods, and selling recreational real estate. If you're interested in having a place of your own for hunting, hiking, fishing, or just relaxing, visit our website at PotlatchDelticLandSales.com.
Thank you once again to PotlatchDeltic for their support of the show. So, Scott, as we kind of enter the last little stage of the episode, something I did want to ask you is we've established, and we've almost beaten this horse to death, that no two pieces of property are the same, just like no two persons' goals for a piece of property are the same.
Right.
But when it comes to talking about what you can do or what you're doing on those properties, what's the best way, or I guess, do you have any advice on diversifying what you're doing? Because we've talked with that with some of our tree farm folks about that before, that you can do more than just grow timber. So I guess, do you guys deal with any of that, or do you talk to landowners about diversifying on your property?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously for us, it's a little different because we're trying to grow trees on every piece of property, every
Yeah.
acre of property we can.
Which we're not going to argue with.
Yeah,
you on,
that's
by
right.
any means.
That's right. And so it's different, but certainly, if a potential buyer comes to us and they're looking at, a property and they say, gosh, it's, you've got it in 100% timberland. I'm still interested in buying it. Maybe I want it for XYZ reason. How can I accomplish that? So you can certainly look at, food plots, for instance. Maybe there aren't any food plots. If you're looking from a recreational hunting standpoint, establishing some food plots. If it's a raw piece of ground, you have the opportunity to really, start it from scratch where you could have, different types of timber. If there's streams there, how do you protect that stream and really make it something that you really want? And that, obviously, if you've got more acreage, a little easier. But even the person with 20 acres can find a way to make that property diverse. And maybe it's just looking already for a diverse piece of property, but certainly staging how you might harvest it or where you put your food plots. All of that are things to consider. I mean, I don't think you have to feel like you're put into a box on what you can do. And that's the great thing about having your own piece of property, right? Because we have plenty, most of our land is leased for hunting. And I would tell you, you can't just do what you want on our property when you lease it, right? But if you own your piece of property yourself, that really opens up the possibilities. You want a large food plot over there, you can go put a large food plot over there. If you want to go plant, you name it, a crop of any type, you can just go do it. And it really opens up the opportunities you have to get the most out of a piece of property.
Well, and I think that's good to kind of mention too, the people who may not be looking for a bigger 2,000 acre investment and want something more like a 20 acre investment, knowing that they too have options, I guess is a good way to put that. Is reassuring. You don't have to have a huge piece of property to be diverse.
That's right. Yeah, you don't. I mean, really, you can get whatever you want out of a piece of property if you just know what you're doing, or, as we've said, get advice, from somebody who can help you out there. But you really don't have to be put in a corner on what you can do with a piece of property.
So as we get to the end here, Scott, we've talked about the process and things people kind of need to be aware of. But when it comes down to it, there are real people buying these properties who either have done this or have not done this before. So what advice would you give to someone even playing with the idea of purchasing a piece of land as an investment?
Right. Homework. Do your homework.
What everyone loves to hear is homework.
Yeah, that's right. But really, you as we've said, you've got to know what you're looking for and what you're getting yourself into. And it's not a complicated process, but it can be if you're not prepared. And so it always pains me when I'm talking to somebody who's just jumped into it without knowing what they're doing. I think that's really the key, is understanding what the process is, know what you want. Mm-hmm. Can you get that with the piece of property? And be patient. Be patient. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, don't jump on something just because it's there. Know that you're getting a piece of property you want, and that it's going to do what you are hoping to do with it. Mm-hmm. And we really try to make sure people understand what they're getting into. Really, we're not helping ourselves or anybody else by not doing that.
Well, and it's also, something that I feel like should be mentioned here is it's also not just, if you are looking at timberland, it's not just buy a piece of property, plant some trees, watch them grow, cut them down, back to step one. Like there's new things coming out. Solar has been a big topic. Carbon. We just had Stuart Allen with Native State on a couple episodes ago to talk about carbon. Lithium is a new topic that's being brought up. So, do you guys have any advice for people who are kind of hearing all these new technologies popping up? Yeah,
I mean, there's plenty of ways to educate yourself on that now. Obviously, the internet. Reach out to the Arkansas Forestry Association. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can really find out plenty of things if you just ask, but you need to know, because it's changing, right? It's not just timberland anymore. There are opportunities out there, all the ones you just mentioned, and we're seeing those every day. And us at PotlatchDeltic are looking at what makes the most sense for us. Is that acre best as timberland? Is it best for solar? Do we have some lithium potential? Mm-hmm. That's really what we're, at the end of the day, trying to make sure that we are getting the most out of our piece of property. And that's what others should be doing too, is knowing that doesn't mean you have to, if you have a piece of property and a solar company, for instance, comes to you and, wants to put solar panels on your property, that doesn't mean you have to, right?
Yeah.
That absolutely not. But you need to know what your options are and understand what you can get out of your property. And if you want your property just as a timber property, you can do that. Mm-hmm. But know what other options are, because it's ever changing. Lithium to me was not anything a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And now it's the big talk. Mm-hmm. And I always say, what's around the corner? If we've seen that, if we've seen solar and carbon and lithium now, all these things are starting to pop up. What's next? And so I would just, even if you already own that piece of property, stay out there in the market and know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Know what you can do.
Yeah.
I think it's going to benefit you in the long run.
Well, and like you said, for PotlatchDeltic, you guys are doing what's best for you. Private landowner, do what's best for you.
Yep.
If that means just timberland, cool, rock on with that. If it means maybe looking at carbon, cool. Like, there are options. Just know what your goals are and do what's best for you, and don't feel pressured to do anything, because I know that there are some bad actors out there, especially, coming up in their shiny new suits and talking about lithium of all things. But not to knock on lithium, but just as an example.
Yeah.
So, I think that kind of falls back to know what your goal is and do you.
That's right. You've got to, know your goals, know what you want. And, and if you're not sure, ask for help. Mm-hmm. Ask for some feedback. I mean, Arkansas in general has a lot of great people who are willing to help you any way they can. And so I think just don't feel like there's, you can't get help to understand the process and what you can do.
Well, Scott, I think that's going to kind of do it for our discussion, but is there anything else that maybe I forgot to ask, or anything else that you want to add before we kind of wrap this bad boy up?
I mean, not really, Seth. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk today. And obviously, we've talked about this land investment, and PotlatchDeltic has, obviously a real estate program. That's what I do. If we can help in any way, Seth, we have a website, PotlatchDelticLandSales.com. You can see our properties that we have out there. You can see what's, available. Mm-hmm. You can see our brokers. you can find a way to contact us. If you have any questions, we'd love to talk to you.
All right. Well, Scott, thank you, man, for stopping by and helping us with this topic. We appreciate you guys supporting the show with just with your donations, but also being willing to sit in this very loud room in front of a microphone and talk about this for half an hour or so. So thank you so much.
No, I've enjoyed it. I appreciate it, Seth.
Awesome. And we want to thank you guys for stopping by this month and listening to the episode. I want to give one more special thank you to our sponsors this month, PotlatchDeltic. They have been great supporters of the show over the last couple years, and we really appreciate their support. And we also want to give a special shout out and thank you to some guy named Rob for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's off of his album, The Folkster. You can find more of his music on Spotify, and his website, as always. We'll have a link to that website in the description of this episode. So make sure you join us next month when we'll have a new topic, a new discussion, and a new Voice of Forestry.